Vivian had always been a discreet woman, known for her dedication and loyalty. Since she started working at Eduardo Almeida's mansion, a powerful and respected businessman, she devoted herself to her duties with diligence. The mansion was a reflection of Eduardo's success, imposing, luxurious, and shrouded in a mysterious aura that always intrigued her. The grand wrought iron gate, white walls adorned with beveled glass windows, and meticulously tended gardens were just part of the world Vivian observed from a distance. Vivian's monotonous routine began to shift and she found herself drawn to the charm and intensity of her employer. Eduardo was a charismatic man, tall, with dark hair that casually fell over his forehead and piercing blue eyes that seemed to read people's souls. He often spent hours in meetings, but when he was home, his presence was magnetic. Vivian felt her heart race every time he entered the room. At first, she tried to ignore this attraction. She knew it was improper to harbor feelings for someone in such a high position. However, the tension between them grew as their daily interactions became more charged. Eduardo frequently praised Vivian's work, making her feel appreciated and special. The prolonged glances between them became more frequent. Each exchanged smile seemed to carry a hidden meaning. Eduardo was going through a difficult time in his marriage with Clara. Though they had been married for years, things between them were not the same. Clara was an elegant and controlling woman but had become increasingly emotionally distant. She was so focused on maintaining appearances and social status that she had forgotten the love that once united them. Their conversations were superficial, and Eduardo often felt lonely in his own home. Small arguments became common. Clara complained about the time Eduardo spent away from home, accusing him of being more interested in his business than his family. Eduardo tried to explain that he was merely ensuring their future, but Clara didn't seem to understand his intention. Sleepless nights became frequent for Eduardo as he sought comfort in his solitude, gazing at the stars through his office window. Amid this emotionally tumultuous context, Vivian began to feel drawn to Eduardo. Their initial connection started as a platonic friendship but soon evolved into something deeper. One day, while organizing documents in his office, Vivian noticed Eduardo was visibly stressed and offered her help. "You look tired," she said softly as she approached him. "It's just work," Eduardo replied with a tired smile. "But thank you for caring." Vivian felt warmth rise to her face at his words. The casual touch of their hands as she passed him the papers made her heart race. The tension in the air was palpable. Both were aware of the chemistry between them but hesitated to take the next step. As days passed, their relationship continued to evolve slowly. They began having deeper conversations during work breaks, sharing dreams and fears, building an emotional intimacy that Eduardo no longer had with Clara. Each passing day brought Vivian closer to him, and filled her with guilt. The first time their lips met was on a rainy evening when Eduardo was stuck at the mansion due to bad weather. They were watching a movie together in the living room. The atmosphere was relaxed until a romantic scene made their gazes linger too long. The sound of rain against the windows filled the silence as they slowly leaned toward each other. The kiss started gently but quickly transformed into something passionate, a suppressed desire bursting into flames. Vivian felt as if all the weight of the world had vanished in that moment. It seemed like nothing else mattered but the two of them. After that first kiss, secret encounters became frequent. Every moment together was a mix of excitement and fear. They knew they were crossing a dangerous line. Their hours together were filled with laughter and whispered passions, but there was always a looming shadow of guilt hanging over them. Vivian wrestled with her conscience as she carried out her daily duties in the mansion. Looking at Clara, always so elegant and composed, she felt a heavy weight on her heart. Interactions between Clara and Eduardo grew increasingly tense as he unknowingly distanced himself emotionally from her. Eduardo became more and more torn between his love for his mistress and his commitment to his wife. He often spoke about how Clara didn't understand his emotional needs and how Vivian gave him a freedom he lacked in his marriage. Their conversations were full of whispered promises and plans for a future together, a future that seemed increasingly distant as their clandestine meetings continued. The affair culminated on a fateful night when Clara decided to go out for dinner with friends, leaving Eduardo alone at home. Seizing the opportunity, he invited Vivian to spend the evening with him at the mansion. When Vivian arrived, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Both knew exactly what was about to happen. They dined together by candlelight in the main hall, a simple meal that carried profound meaning for them both. After dinner, they went to the office where it had all begun. The walls had borne witness to months of laughter and confessions. The room was steeped in the accumulated tension between them. When their lips met again, it felt as if the entire universe had stopped. Passion erupted between them as hands explored yearning bodies. Every touch was laden with suppressed emotion and ardent desire. They gave themselves completely to the moment, forgetting consequences and the outside world. The night was marked by intense moments. Passionate whispers echoed off the mansion's walls as they explored every inch of each other's bodies. The physical connection was undeniable. It felt as if everything around them vanished as they delved into the depths of their desire. Vivian had always been a discreet woman, known for her dedication and loyalty. Since she began working at Eduardo Almeida's mansion, a powerful and respected businessman, she immersed herself in her duties. The mansion was a reflection of Eduardo's success, imposing, luxurious, and shrouded in mystery that intrigued her. The grand wrought iron gate, white walls adorned with beveled glass windows, and meticulously kept gardens were all part of a world Vivian observed from the sideline. Vivian's monotonous routine began to change when she found herself drawn to Eduardo's charm and intensity. Eduardo was a charismatic man, tall, with dark hair that casually fell over his forehead and piercing blue eyes that seemed to read people's innermost thoughts. His presence was magnetic, and Vivian felt her heart race every time he entered a room. At first, she tried to suppress her feelings, knowing how improper they were. But the tension between them grew as their interactions became increasingly loaded with unspoken meaning. Eduardo often praised Vivian's work, making her feel valued and special. Prolonged glances and fleeting smiles became more frequent, each carrying a weight that neither dared to acknowledge aloud. Eduardo was going through a difficult time in his marriage with Clara. Though they had been married for years, their relationship had become strained. Clara was elegant and controlling but emotionally distant. She was so preoccupied with maintaining appearances and social status that she had lost sight of the love that once united them. Conversations between them were superficial, and Eduardo often felt alone in his own home. The growing rift in Eduardo and Clara's relationship paved the way for Vivian's connection with Eduardo to deepen. What began as a professional bond turned into shared moments of vulnerability and understanding. One rainy night, when Eduardo invited Vivian to stay late at the mansion due to the weather, their shared glances and subtle gestures culminated in a kiss that ignited a spark between them. The kiss marked the beginning of a secret affair. Their moments together were filled with passion and a sense of liberation, but also weighed down by the knowledge of the betrayal it represented. While Eduardo found solace in Vivian's companionship, Clara began to sense that something was amiss. Suspicious of her husband's behavior, Clara hired a private investigator. The evidence came back damning. Photos of Eduardo with Vivian in intimate moments confirmed Clara's worst fears. The confrontation that followed turned the mansion into a battleground of raw emotion. On a stormy night, Clara confronted Eduardo in the living room. The tension in the air was suffocating as Eduardo entered, immediately sensing something was wrong. Clara sat on the sofa with her arms crossed, her gaze piercing. "We need to talk," she said, her voice calm but brimming with restrained fury. "About what?" Eduardo asked cautiously. "About you and your mistress." The words dripped with venom as she threw a stack of photos onto the table between them. Eduardo's face fell as he realized there was no escape from the truth. Clara's accusations came fast and furious, each one cutting deeper than the last. "You betrayed me, Eduardo. With someone who works for us, no less." Clara's voice trembled with anger and pain. Eduardo tried to explain, his voice filled with regret. "Clara, I didn't mean to hurt you. It wasn't just. I didn't plan for this to happen." Clara, however, was inconsolable. "You didn't mean to hurt me? Do you have any idea what you've done to our family?" she demanded. In the midst of their explosive argument, Vivian, who had been listening from the servants' quarters, found herself unable to stay hidden any longer. With tears streaming down her face, she emerged, trembling. "I never wanted this to happen," she said, her voice cracking. "You," Clara spat, her eyes blazing. "You destroyed my marriage, my life." "Clara, please." Eduardo tried to intervene, but the damage was already done. Clara's pain and Vivian's guilt filled the room like a storm. The confrontation ended with Clara demanding Vivian leave the mansion immediately. With a broken heart and tearful eyes, Vivian packed her things and left through the back door, the same door through which their love affair had quietly begun. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered to Eduardo as she said her final goodbye. "I know," Eduardo replied, his voice filled with sorrow, "but I can't abandon my wife." In the following days, Vivian worked to rebuild her life. She found a job at a small cafe in the city, where the warm atmosphere and kind customers helped her begin to heal. Eduardo and Clara, meanwhile, were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered marriage. Clara sought therapy to process the betrayal and rediscover her own identity. Eduardo also turned to professional help, reflecting on his choices and their impact. Despite their efforts, the scars of the affair lingered, making it difficult for either of them to fully move forward. Though Vivian tried to let go of the past, memories of Eduardo haunted her. She often wondered if the love they had shared was worth the pain it caused. Their lives continued on separate paths, forever changed by a love that could never be fully realized. Time passed slowly until one day, Vivian received an unexpected message on her phone. It was Eduardo asking to meet again. The invitation brought back long-buried feelings. She hesitated before responding. The desire to see him again battled against the fear of the consequences of such a reunion. Eventually, she decided to go to the designated meeting spot, a quiet park where they had once walked together during their clandestine moments at the mansion. When she arrived, her eyes immediately met his. Her heart raced at the sight of his familiar smile tinged with sadness. "I'm sorry for everything," he began as they approached each other. "I lost you because of my choices." Vivian took a deep breath before replying, "You lost much more than that." They talked at length about everything that had happened since that fateful night, the lies Eduardo had told to try to protect Clara and how they had only worsened the situation between the three of them. Despite the lingering pain in their words, there was an undeniable spark between them, a deep connection that seemed to defy time and adverse circumstances. "I never stopped loving you," Eduardo finally confessed, his eyes locking onto hers with genuine sincerity. Vivian felt her heart waver at his declaration. Yet, she knew that rekindling their relationship would mean re-entering the same destructive cycle of the past, something she wasn't willing to do again. "I love you too," she said softly, her gaze dropping to the ground as she fought back tears. "But we need to move on." The meeting ended with tight, longing hugs. Both understood that this moment marked a definitive goodbye to their shared past, but it also opened the door for new possibilities in their future. As time passed slowly after that emotionally charged encounter, Vivian found peace within herself. She learned to value her own strength and independence, away from the shadows of the mansion where it all began, where secrets were revealed, and hearts were broken. The story ends here, but it leaves a poignant message. Even in the most complicated situation, it is possible to find light after darkness, to start anew, to learn from mistakes, to overcome emotional challenges, and to discover new paths forward.